Hey everybody, Greg from Park Journey. Last weekend we went to Disneyland for the first time since their reopening, and I wanted to kind of share some thoughts. I'll also be sharing some thoughts on our Disney Hacks podcast on Friday. We are actually recording live for the first time and video streaming, so be sure to share that link once we have it on Friday morning. So it'll be at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. So make sure you check that out as well. But again, I'm just going to share some thoughts about our visit. Good and bad, both mostly good, but little things that I found a little concerning. But before we get into that, make sure you click below to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd greatly appreciate having your subscription. So we drove down to the parks on Thursday night after work, worked all day, and then stayed at the Hilton right there by the convention center on Thursday and Friday night, and then went to DCA on Friday for the opening day of Avengers Campus, and then Disneyland on Saturday. As I mentioned, we had a fantastic time. I've had a couple issues with the hotel, which I'm not going to get into in this video, but look for an article coming out about that over the next couple of days. So again, we just hung out in the hotel for Thursday night, got dinner, ate in the hotel, and then got up pretty early on Friday to get over to DCA. Now, apparently people were lining up as early as like 4 o'clock in the morning to get into the rope drop for Avengers Campus. We didn't do that at all, but we arrived probably around 7:30, so we actually stayed in our hotel until the 7 a.m. Virtual queue time. So we wanted to make sure that we were kind of not in a busy area, so we did that at the hotel. We did not get into Spider-Man at the 7 o'clock time, so we just walked over to the back check over on the harbor side. So we got there probably around 7:30 or so, and you can see here this is the line to actually get in through security. It took probably about an hour. To be honest with you, it was a little less on Saturday. When we got there probably about the same exact time on Saturday, and it was a little less busy than this. And I know that security is a thing that we have to deal with. Obviously, this day and age, metal detectors and different things like that. Honestly, Disney needs to find a better way to do this. It should not be taking this long. They should not be rummaging through your bags, people's hands in your stuff. Every other park in Southern California that I visited has figured out how to do this without, completely hands-free. Knott's has things that you just walk through. Universal has the metal detectors with the airport they have. They just you put it in and it scans it through. Magic Mountain has completely touchless things. You don't have to take things out of your pocket. You just walk right through it. And all of these parks figured it out, and Disney is still looking through every single crevice of your bag, and it's ridiculously slow. It should not be taking this long for this to happen. But once we actually got in, once we got it through security, it was probably about 8:20, 8:30 or so. No problem actually getting into the park. Here you can see there was actually a longer line to get into DCA on Friday than there was at Disneyland, and Saturday as well. So it was pretty long. But once we got into DCA, we actually saw the line for Avengers Campus. I'll get into that in just a minute, as far as the queue and the issues there. But we actually headed to the right and did Soarin' and kind of walked around the park a little bit. And here you can see some of this video. It's super empty. I will say the park was dead pretty much all day other than Avengers Campus. So we had done a couple of things in the morning. Like I said, Soarin', we walked right on it. We did like Little Mermaid. We were going to do Radiator Springs Racers, but then opted to actually get in the line for Avengers Campus, the standby line. And I think we did Monsters right before that as well. So we got into the line for Avengers Campus right around probably 10 o'clock in the morning. So after just kind of wandering around the park and just enjoying our morning in the park, about 10 o'clock in the morning we got in the line. So the line actually started where we got in was right outside of Monsters Inc., kind of by the stage there. And we were in the line for about 50 minutes. And the line basically went from Monsters around the corner, Hollywood Boulevard, around towards Hyperion, and then we were right almost in front of Animation. So that's all it moved in 50 minutes. And then we ended up getting out of line. And the reason why is because there was a cast member coming around talking to people, telling people about the queue, and apparently, other than the rope drop they had right at 8 o'clock in the morning, nobody from that standby line had actually gotten into Avengers Campus that morning. So basically, the line went from Hollywood all the way through the main being dragged past Cars Land, past Pacific Wharf, into the Paradise Park, and switched back in there, and then back to Avengers Campus. And apparently, it was taking 5 or 6 hours to get through that line just to get inside the land. That didn't even guarantee you getting on Spider-Man. You needed to have a virtual queue. So at that point, we basically decided it wasn't really that important for us to be quote unquote first in Avengers Campus, because obviously we wouldn't have been, and not to waste our day at DCA just standing in line to see Avengers Campus. This was our first trip since the closure. This is probably going to be our only trip until APs come back. So we just wanted to kind of enjoy our day. So we just figured if we didn't get into Avengers Campus, not that big of a deal. It's not going anywhere. It's brand new. And we would just catch it on the next time. Obviously, we still tried to get virtual passes at noon, which again I'll get into in a second. So after we got online, we went over to Radiator Springs Racers. Waited probably 35-40 minutes for it. Not bad at all. And honestly, most of the lines in the park were not that bad. As far as, they were distanced and things like that, but the queue lines, I think the longest we waited was probably for Radiator Springs, which was about 40 minutes when we went, and that was probably about 11. So by the time we got out of Radiator Springs Racers, we had ordered lunch on the app, and we had ordered a couple snacks at the Paradise Garden Grill by Goofy's Sky School. For right around noon, so we figured we would go find his table, do our virtual queue, or try to get a virtual queue for Spider-Man, and then have a snack, and then have our lunch about 1. And this actually ended up working out perfectly. So basically, we went over there, found a table, sat for a few minutes, just kind of, masked off, after a couple of hours of having the masks on. Right at noon, we were able to score virtual line passes for Spider-Man. Actually, my wife did. My wife is super amazing at this virtual queue thing. It's kind of uncanny, but she was able to do that. So we had group, I think, 91. So we had a few hours, from there. So we did, a couple of different things. We actually did the Inside Out ride, which we hadn't done since it got put over there. We did Toy Story Midway Mania, which we hadn't done in probably a decade. Just because the line is always too long, and it seemed kind of bumpy last time we rode it, and it was great this time, and we waited maybe 20 minutes for it, if even that. I did California Screamin', pretty much walked right on that, maybe 10 minutes. And this was, all at, between 12 and 1 on a Friday. So it was great. So then we went and did our lunch, had some really good food at the Kuchinuku Kamunga. So you can see that here, and some dessert at the Ghirardelli. Had some really great service in here. Cast members in here were amazing. And then we went and did, I think, Philharmonic Magic, and then we went back and did Soarin' at like 2, and we waited 20 minutes for it, which, anybody who knows the park, knows that you cannot get on Soarin' at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and a standby line at 20 minutes. So, like I said, the rest of the park was pretty dead, pretty much all day. And then we got into Avengers. We did a little bit more walking around, some shopping and things like that. So then we finally got into Avengers around 4. And when we got in there, the crowds this was where basically everybody in the park was. It was pretty packed in there. And to be honest, a little bit too packed for our taste. But we decided to go in and do it, and we got in line for Spider-Man, and it was probably 40 minutes or so. I think it broke down once, but the line moved pretty quick. And honestly, we had a great time on the ride. I was going to shoot a POV, but once the 3D came up, the camera was not picking up the 3D very well, so I figured not to waste time and actually do that. But we did do a video of the queue and the pre-show that you can check out. But I actually really loved the ride. And like I said, we had ridden Toy Story a couple hours prior to this, and it didn't compare at all. It was a completely different experience as far as I'm concerned. I think the ride vehicles are great. I think there's probably some of the coolest ride vehicles that Disney's ever put out for any attraction. They're super cool. The way that they're set up, we really had a great time on the ride, and can't wait to ride it again. I mean, it's not it's not the wow factor of something like Rise of the Resistance or something like that, but we had a great time on it. And people that are basically just watching videos and shortchanging it, just ride it. Have fun with it. I think people will have fun. So then after that, we went over and we kind of walked around campus a little bit. We had put in a mobile order earlier in the day for some drinks, and they were at like 6:40. So we figured, yeah, that's 3 hours in Avengers Campus. We'll be able to easily spend 3 hours in there and get our drink order. And we went and did Guardians of the Galaxy. My wife had never done that before, so we had a great time on that. But like I said, there was way too many people in Avengers Campus for us. I think what was happening was people were getting in, they're waiting in this 5-hour line, or they're getting a virtual queue for Spider-Man in the morning, and then they weren't leaving because you would have had to wait in the line again to get back in. So once people were in, they were in, and then they kept letting more and more and more and more people in, and nobody was leaving because they knew they wouldn't be able to get back in. So I think that was a huge miss, to be honest with you. I think they should have figured out a way to do some, not just timed entries to the land, but time limits once you're in the land, 2-3 hours, and then you got to take a hike, and then you can maybe come back in. Or just, have it open, have the land open, and then just do the virtual queue for Spider-Man. I think that would have probably helped a little bit as well, because, again, the park itself didn't seem that busy. Let people go out and write some other things and then come back to see the show and come back to do Guardians or whatever it is. I think that was kind of a huge miss, to be honest with you, of keeping everybody, once they're in there, making sure that they stay in there, or forcing them to basically stay in there if they want to experience everything. So we were only in Avengers Campus for maybe 2 hours, and an hour and a half of that was probably between the Spider-Man queue and Guardians queue. There was a lot more that we wanted to see. The Doctor Strange stuff and the Spider-Man thing, the show and stuff. We wanted to see it all, but it was just way too many people in there, and we knew that the rest of the park was not busy, so we just decided to kind of head out. And again, like I said earlier, it's not going anywhere. I didn't feel like I needed to spend 3 days in there just fighting with people to get a picture of Captain America or Loki or whatever. We'll go back when it's not slammed. So that's cool. It's all right. Some people were happy to do a whole 4-day straight of coverage of just Avengers Campus. That's not why we were there. We were there to enjoy the parks, and so we did. So after we did that, we headed back out. We did a couple more rides in the park. We did Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters. My wife had never done that, and you could see, I'll link to the video here, she could not stop laughing on this ride. It was so much fun. But overall, we had a really great day at DCA. Just, kind of took it easy. We could have easily ridden everything in the park multiple times if we were rushing through our day, but we didn't feel like we needed to do that. Radiator Springs, we were going to do it again, but it broke down, and I didn't think it ever reopened on Friday night. But again, we had a really great day at DCA. And then the next morning, same thing. We woke up woke up early, did our virtual queue for Rise of the Resistance at 7, which we did. We got group, I think, 9 or 11 or something like that. So we were super early. So we arrived at the park about the same time, 7:30. The line to get into security was not as long, but it took probably half an hour, 45 minutes. And then obviously we went into Disneyland. Being back in Disneyland was obviously pretty emotional. It was great to be back in that park. But just like with DCA, the walkways seemed a little crowded, more crowded at Disneyland, just because of the way the walkways are set up and the way that the extended queues were set up, especially in New Orleans Square. But the wait times themselves were not bad at all. So we started off our morning in Fantasyland and did Snow White and Pinocchio and Mr. Toad. And then we were going to do Space Mountain, and then our time came up for Rise, so we went over and did that, obviously. Went in through like Critter Country, did Pooh and Splash, and then Haunted Mansion. I will say one of the biggest issues was trying to find the end of the line for this extended queues, especially for Haunted Mansion and for Pirates. it's kind of hard to just find where the line began a lot of times. But once you're in there, most people were doing good with the, looking at the markers and socially distancing and things. We didn't really have that issue at DCA, as people not paying attention to it. At Disneyland was a different story. Most people were okay, but like some of the lines like Peter Pan and Small World, people just did not care. They just were ignoring the markers. But again, we had a really great morning. Did like I said, Fantasyland stuff, Rise, Critter Country, and New Orleans Square stuff. So one of the things I will say is if you are planning your first trip to Disneyland, or you haven't been in, let's say 5-10 years, I would not suggest going right now. It's just not the same experience that you're normally going to get. And a lot of that has to do with dining options. So some of the restaurants aren't open, like Hungry Bear's not open, the restaurant by Big Thunder's not open, and the big restaurant in Galaxy's Edge is not open either. But even like the food options, like in Fantasyland and Tomorrowland, basically it's just burgers and chicken sandwiches, and that was pretty much about it. So they didn't really have a whole lot of different things. DCA, on the other hand, they had a lot of different variety. They had kept some stuff from the Touch of Disney, but for some odd reason they kept the Monte Cristo at Smoke Jumpers, but there was nowhere to get a Monte Cristo inside Disneyland, other than New Blue Bayou or Cafe Orleans, which you needed a reservation for. So that was kind of a miss as well. So I wish they would have, done some more dining options there at Disneyland. But we had lunch at Tomorrowland, and then we did Space Mountain at, I think it was like 1 or 2 30-minute wait, which again does not ever happen. And then we went up and did like Small World and Roger Rabbit, got some pictures of Mickey's Runaway Railway, which the building is definitely not there, right? And then, went back in through Galaxy's Edge, had a snack, had a Ronto wrap and a drink, and then went and did Pirates Mansion again and Tiki Room. So just, again, had a really nice, chill day. And again, we could have ridden every single attraction in the park with very little effort. But, we were just kind of happy just chilling and relaxing and having just a nice day in the park. So, again, it was a different experience, not one I probably want to repeat anytime soon. So, like I said, I think we will definitely not be back until passes are back, or whatever ends up happening. As far as I can tell right now, that might change in 4 to 5 months, and we don't have anything yet. Maybe we'll see. If we decide we want to go for the holidays or something like that, and they don't have passes back. So, we'll see. I'm not going to say never, but as of right now, this was our only visit until passes come back. But anyway, like I said, we had a great time. It felt great to be back. It was, like I said, it was a bit different, but definitely glad we did it. Glad we went. It was great to be out. Great to be, out in the world. I got a little bit too much sun. But it happens. You haven't been outside for a year. It'll happen, right? But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And if you have any thoughts about your trips to Disneyland or DCA or Avengers Campus, please make sure you share them in the comments below. Take care, everybody.